I guess second time works a charm. Joseph Parker legitimately outpoints Dereck Chisora to win their rematch. We got this prediction right. Joseph Parker on points. However, early on, it did not look like this fight was going to go the distance in any way, shape or form. Round one, Joseph Parker has come out into the centre of the ring and Dereck Chisora isn't on the front foot. If anything, he's brushing the ropes. And it was interesting because Joseph Parker came out in a very low stance, or relatively low by his standards. And it was almost kind of George Groves-esque. And he looked very ready. He had a lot of bend in his knees. He was very kind of stalking. He didn't look quick. And I was kind of thinking, has Joseph Parker put on a bit too much weight? Is he feeling sluggish already from the first round? So he's in this low stance. And I'm thinking, is he sluggish? Clearly not, because he let rip a massive right hand. And in real time, it looked like it hit Dereck Chisora flush on the chin. But the replay showed that actually hit the shoulder. So this is the first round. And I was thinking from then, the writing's on the wall for Dereck Chisora. He's going to get knocked out. Because Chisora came out and he looked slow. Not only was he not coming forward, not advancing like he usually does, applying the pressure, he was quite passive almost in the first round, because it's the first impression, and he looked slow, he looked sluggish, and Joseph Parker just ripped these punches. Chisora got out of the first round, and now I think seeing that punch and the speed on it, I think it lit a fire underneath Chisora, because he's come out and now he's starting to apply the pressure. And there were some more exchanges that I felt that Joseph Parker was getting the better of, purely because his shots were just a bit tighter. The arc of them was tighter, the trajectory was shorter, and we know Dereck Chisora, sometimes he does wing his punches, and he was just kind of coming off second best. Round 3 saw Dereck Chisora buzzed quite heavily, and I think Joseph Parker is definitely a work in progress, which I'm going to touch on later on, because he clearly, in my opinion, took his foot off the gas. And by this point, Dereck Chisora looked done. He looked completely spent from what I could see. He looked shaky in the first 2 rounds, and now in the third round, he's looking pretty done, I have to say. Round 4 comes, and a massive uppercut by Joseph Parker almost knocks Dereck Chisora's head into row Z. And Dereck Chisora is, a count was given. I can't remember, there were quite a few knockdowns in this fight. I want to say like 3 knockdowns, and they pretty much all came from the right uppercut of Joseph Parker, which proves to be a wicked weapon in this fight. However, whenever Dereck Chisora would get hurt, he'd do the same thing. He'd walk over to the corner and he'd just stand there. In his guard, he'd just stand there. And now, that sounds like suicide, but it's actually rather intelligent, because Dereck Chisora understands that Joseph Parker isn't the most audacious fighter. He doesn't have the best finishing instinct. Sometimes he's someone who will hit you just enough so that you don't advance on him anymore. So the fact that Dereck Chisora was doing that and moving to the corner, it's a very intelligent mind game, and it proved to work, because I mean, Dereck Chisora finished the fight, but whenever he'd do it, he'd catch himself a rest. 10, 15, maybe 20 seconds. Doesn't seem like much, but when you've just been buzzed and you're in a 12-round fight, it can make the difference. And so pretty much the first 4 rounds, I want to say, were Joseph Parker and Joseph Parker big. Kind of got to like the 5th round, and this is where Dereck Chisora he was starting to claw his way back into the fight. Not landing anything significant, but he was starting to get a bit more momentum, and he was able to get up close. And by this point, we started to see the output and the quality of Joseph Parker's work lessening. Something happened in round 6, but I'm going to get back to that at the end of the video, or closer to the end after I've gone through the rounds. Round 7, another uppercut, knocked down Dereck Chisora. As I said, there were 3 knockdowns. Pretty much all of them came from the uppercut. And a lot of the time it came because Dereck Chisora is trying to use this kind of semi-cross-arm defense, but sometimes he just didn't have his hands in the tightest place, and he'd move into the uppercut and essentially double the impact. And you know, some fighters, there are particular punches that they're susceptible to. Some fighters it's left hooks, some fighters it's uppercuts. Some fighters, it might be a certain punch from someone of the opposite stance, be it southpaw or orthodox. These things happen, and in this fight, it clearly showed that Dereck Chisora does have this susceptibility when it comes to the uppercut, at least the uppercut of Joseph Parker. And the end of the fight was a strange one, because Joseph Parker started so well, and towards the end, I know fatigue sets in, but I think we started to see Joseph Parker. He knew he was tired. He knew Dereck Chisora was still in front of him, but he was starting to feel sorry for himself, which is what we saw a lot of in the first fight. And this links back to something that Andy Lee was saying. This is what happened in the 6th round. At the end of the 6th round, Andy Lee says to Joseph Parker in the corner, "This is the dark place." And now I love that. I love that, because Andy Lee, I feel like Joseph Parker was almost reflecting Andy Lee's demeanor. If you look at the beginning of the fight, Andy Lee was pumped. He was directing all of his energy to Joseph Parker, and he was really trying to get him geared up. Not recklessly, but he was trying to get him amped. He's trying to get him into fighting mode. And that's how Joseph Parker started the fight. He started it explosively, with intent, looking to do damage. But towards the end of the fight, Andy Lee started to become a bit more jovial, I want to say, a bit more relaxed. And I felt like that was almost reflected in Joseph Parker's work rate. Because yes, as I say, the fatigue was setting in, but the intensity of Joseph Parker kind of backed off a little bit, and we did start to see him start to feel sorry for himself. But I love that quote, "This is the dark place," because this shows that Andy Lee has been probably telling Joseph Parker for weeks now, maybe even months, this fight's going to get hard. Based on that first fight, Dereck Chisora is going to take you to a place where you don't want to go, and you're going to have to fight your way out of it. You're going to have to fight your way out of this tough, dark place, and it's not going to be nice. You're going to be tired. You're going to feel like you're being strangled, because you've got this massive, I don't know how much Chisora weighs, massive mountain of a man trying to bang your body like a drum, and you're going to have to fight your way out of it. And now, it wasn't the strongest finish from Joseph Parker, but I do believe that this will be the beginning of seeing Joseph Parker maintain some of that spite throughout a fight. As I say, it still needs to be worked on. There are still plenty of things for Joseph Parker to work on, but he secured the victory in this fight. Knocked down Dereck Chisora 3 times, and this was really his fight to lose. Dereck Chisora, they a lot of the time the commentary were talking about how, you know, this rematch was so much better, so much more entertaining because of the crowd. And I certainly agree. This fight was much better than the first fight. However, for my money, this performance by Dereck Chisora was much worse than the first fight, because, I mean, he got hit more, he got knocked down more, and just in general, he did less. The quality of his work was worse. But then, of course, you do have to factor in that he was getting hit upside the head from early on in the fight. So, Joseph Parker, I've spoken about the stance. There were changes in his structure, in his stance, and the way he was moving his legs. There were a bit more space in between them, a bit more of a bend, a bit more of a kind of crouching tiger stance, I want to say. And I feel like we saw a bit more variation in his work. A lot of the time in the first fight, he'd just kind of resort to this lunging left hook, and he'd keep trying it no matter how many times Dereck Chisora was able to defend it, even by a couple of inches. It wasn't successful. Whereas in this fight, he found success for the punches, but he didn't abuse them. You know, he didn't overuse it, particularly with the uppercut. As I say, the success rate on that uppercut was tremendous. So a good performance by Joseph Parker, I want to say. Is he ready to go back into world heavyweight title contention off the back of this performance? Not for my money, no. This is not good enough to go up against the likes of an Anthony Joshua, who's no longer a champion, but still a top dog, if you like. Alexander Usyk, no. Tyson Fury, he's not going to fight Tyson Fury anyway, because they're like brothers, quote unquote. I don't like that, but that's a different conversation. Who else is there? No, I don't. It's just, it's a tough one, because other fighters aren't necessarily going to pose Joseph Parker the same problems as Chisora. However, they're going to have their own strength that are much better than, say, Chisora's versions of those strengths, if you like. So, but just based on the entire Joseph Parker performance tonight, I don't think it's good enough to make him a champion again. I'll be quite frank about that. Regarding Dereck Chisora, I think it's time for Chisora to call it a day. But hey, it's a free country. He is a grown man. He can do whatever the hell he wants. But if I was a loved one of Dereck Chisora, I'd be telling him, just call it a day. He's spent. He is done. This is his 12th loss. And he's taken punishment, a lot of punishment in the past few years. And so, I mean, Dereck Chisora's brain must be like flipping strawberry milkshake sloshing around in his head by this point. He's made enough money. Dereck Chisora, he needs to call it a day. So, that's pretty much all I have to say on this fight. It was a good fight, very entertaining fight. You probably hear in my voice I'm quite pumped. It was very entertaining, a good watch on a December Saturday evening. And a decent fight before Christmas, I must say. So, I think I've touched on everything. I'm just waffling by this point. Let me know what you thought of the fight. Let me know what you thought of my take. Do you think I've missed anything? Do you agree, disagree? As always, leave it down below and I'll get back to you. If you could like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you in the next video.